I am Claudia Reisner, and I'm a Navy veteran with 29 years active duty service. I'm also the new chair of the Veterans and Military Families Caucus, and I'm very happy to welcome all of you to our joint forum with the Rural Caucus tonight, night two. So our VMF caucus is constituency-based, not ideology-based. We have over 400 members who either served in the military, are serving, or are immediate family members of a veteran. And that includes 50 SCC members. That's 10% of the total state central committee. SCC members are active Dems who sought those positions. They've got opinions on how they want the party to be run, and they vote, which is especially relevant tonight. So Mayor Peter and I will not be asking candidates questions about ideology because you're not running for policy positions. Rather, we want to know about your organization skills, the duties, the powers, lines of communications, and accessibility as it relates to our caucuses and our constituents. And we want to hear the level of effort and time you intend to devote to this position because frankly, you've got a pretty heavy lift here in New Mexico in bringing more veterans into the Democratic Party. Many veterans are already Democrats, but the perception is that that is not the case. In my opinion, the Democratic Party is a party of the military-industrial complex. The party is the party of the people, and that includes veterans. Elected officials should acknowledge this. They should become aware of issues that are important to the 11% of New Mexicans who are veterans. And we can be a model for how other states can turn their veteran communities and rural communities blue. Right now, you have got a capable and willing partner in our caucus. I'm extremely impressed with the powerful, talented, and tenacious team we have built, but we need to work collaboratively to maximize our effectiveness in achieving our common goals. So welcome. I think we're going to have a very interesting evening for you ahead here tonight. I would like to now invite our first candidate to introduce himself and give any opening remarks. Augie Montoya, CD1.
Okay, I think I'm unmuted. Can everybody hear me? Awesome. So hello, everybody. Thank you to Chairwoman Reisner, Chairman Nieto, the Veteran and Military Families Caucus, the Rural Caucus, and to all of you in attendance. My name is Agustin Montoya, and I am honored to be running for Congressional District 1 Vice Chair with the Democratic Party of New Mexico. And we have a special election on our hands, ladies and gentlemen, and we have to win for our fellow Democrats and get Melanie Stansbury elected. I'm running to engage, inform, and turn out Democrats across the district and the state of New Mexico as a 21-year-old rural New Mexican Latino member of the LGBTQIA+ community, and also as a fellow person. And I think that all these come together to show how important it is for our next CD1 representative to be Melanie Stansbury. But I think we can also focus on future elections as well. And that's why I have developed a plan to engage, inform, and turn out Democrats across Congressional District 1, while also building trust and a sense of reliability.
Thank you, Augie. Next, we move on to David Montoya.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Chairwoman Claudia and Mayor Pete, our New Mexico Mayor Pete. Thank you guys for hosting all this, and thanks to all the candidates who have decided to run, and more importantly, thanks to all the SEC members that have tuned in tonight to kind of make an informed choice about the direction they want to go for this office. Experience brings a lot to the table. My experience is over 3 decades. I started when I was 12 in politics. I've been everything from a precinct chair all the way to Sandoval County chairman at the New Mexico level. And I've also played at the highest level of politics in Washington, D.C., where for 3 years I was a senior legislative staffer in D.C. for Senator Jeff Bingaman. And I also served as in 2 Democratic administrations. Look, it's my belief that the Democratic Party is the last best hope for this nation.
Thank you, David. And now I'd like to introduce Tiffany Stevens.
Last 10 seconds that I got muted were like the best part of my speech.
Hi, good evening. And thank you, Chairwoman Claudia and Mayor Pete, for having me here tonight. And thank you to all the other organizers who helped put this forum on this evening, and to all of the members and attendees who are here witnessing this forum tonight. Thank you for attending. So I am one of those 50 SCC members that is also a member of the Veterans Caucus. I have a father who served a tour in the Gulf War when we were young and served 3 tours in Iraq. So I understand how veterans issues directly affect families and how those issues affect all of us as citizens. And so I really want to spotlight veterans issues and rural issues in my next term as your CD1 Vice Chair. So I'm very honored to be here. I am excited to start talking about the things that we're going to get busy doing in the next election cycle. And so thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Tiffany. And thanks to our 3 CD1 Vice Chair candidates. Now I'd like to ask the first question. And it's a general question. The powers and duties of the CD Vice Chairs are essentially undefined, and consequently not understood nor valued by Democrats in the state. It's our opinion that that should not be the case because it is an underutilization of a valuable asset. How will you define your role? Will you attend DPNM executive board meetings and be a conduit of information from and to party officials in your district, such as caucuses, county and ward leaders? And David Montoya, the first question is to you, sir.
All right, perfect. You know, when you look at those duties, they don't really say much. You're absolutely right. And I want to say yes to everything that you said, just to save time. I'm going to go to all those meetings, and I'm going to get in the car, and I'm going to drive to the rural areas of CD1. So I did that when I was party chair in Sandoval County, and I plan on doing that as a CD1 Vice Chair. But I really don't view that as a limitation. I view it as an opportunity to use this experience to lead the party in a way that focuses on candidate development, recruitment, and campaigning. We have a lot of activists in the rural area, and serving as a bridge to those activists into the party and getting people to run for every office that's open is going to be a priority for me. But more importantly, helping to change the tone and helping people feel more included in what we're doing in the party. You know, we agree on 90% of the stuff whenever I go to a Democratic meeting, but we wind up having a knife fight in the parking lot about the last 10%. So I think that there needs to be a change in tone. I think that people need to feel welcome and accepted, no matter what part of the big tent of the Democratic Party we are. I mean, I'm progressive. There's no way I'll ever win an election in the far northeast heights of Albuquerque. But we need Democrats that can, because we have a unique opportunity that if we do this right, that we can make this Republican Party in the state of New Mexico an unviable organization. But we got to be smart about it. We got to do it together. So, you know, we've got to do it together. That's it. Evelyn, did I beat your time? Oh, there it is.
Thank you, David. I really like those ideas. Not so much about the knife fight, but making the other party irrelevant. That's terrific. Tiffany, would you please go second?
Hi, thank you. So I have 3 main goals that I hope as a CD Vice Chair that we can adopt. And so I'm going to kind of go into it. I hope I have enough time here. So first, I plan for the CD Vice Chairs to be communicators of information and solutions for the needs of the district, to communicate the ideas and the needs of the county chairs to the executive committee and vice versa. So I agree with David. Yes to everything you said. And then second of all, I want to hold monthly meetings and I want to hold I want to reconstruct some of the existing meetings that we have, because I think there's some organization that we can do to make them more effective. And then I'd like to organize voter outreach by doing voter registration and virtual and in-person events with guest speakers within the district. And third, I hope to begin the groundwork for a mentorship program that will put forth a grassroots organizations with the caucuses so that we can begin to create a playbook of sorts that can be passed down to new generation of leaders, and that we can support new leaders as they come through, and that they come through and looking to be a part of each new election cycle, to be leaders in that election cycle. And so as the CD Vice Chair, I also do serve on the Jewish Judicial Council, which hears official complaints of any rule breaking within the Democratic Party. And I just want to ensure all of the people in the Democratic Party in CD1 that I will serve justly and fairness on this council. And so thank you for that time.
Thank you, Tiffany. Next, we move on to Augie.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for the incredibly important question. Thank you to the other two candidates for C1, Tiffany and David. I think you guys are completely right. We need to work to unify our party across sects. That means rural, urban, our veteran communities, rural communities, and all marginalized and disenfranchised portions of our party. For my position, first off, I am committed to being present at all executive board meetings to be sure to relay the needs of our party throughout Congressional District 1 to our executive board. Additionally, my role, in my belief, is best described by Addendum A of my plan. And this plan is a bit in depth. And what it describes is that the CD Vice Chair's job is to be that conduit or that liaison between county level leadership and the state party. Because as CD Vice Chairs, we are intended to organize at a much more manageable level than the entirety of the state party. But I think to begin this change and to really get our initiatives on board, we have to begin with going to the Rules Committee and making an amendment to the bylaws to change the description to better communicate what this position is to do. And I cannot wait to represent in this position because as Congressional District Vice Chair, it is my commitment, much like Tiffany, to host monthly meetings and much like David, to work on unifying our party, not just for this special election, but for elections to come. And so that we can leave an organizational infrastructure that stands beyond my administration, David's administration, or whoever is allowed to be in the male position. So thank you so much for a moment of your time, and thank you for such a phenomenal question.
Thank you very much, Augie, and thank you to all the candidates for their answers to question number 1. Next, we're going to shift our questioning to focus on rural issues. So here's question number 2. We foresee your role as being the liaison between elected officials and the rural activist communities. If you agree, how does a CD Vice Chair establish and maintain that connection between state legislators, DC, and rural New Mexico to the benefit of rural constituents? First, we have Tiffany.
Hi, thank you. So I look forward to attending Veterans Caucus events and Rural Caucus events and supporting our veterans and our rural community in their ongoing efforts to ensure that veterans issues and rural issues are addressed, that they're valued and represented in discussion in our state politics. And I do see myself as an ambassador and an ally to both of these caucuses and to the communities. I plan to advocate and support veterans to seek and achieve positions in higher leadership and to support veterans and rural community leaders in every elected public election. I will support and actively campaign for any Democrats who show interest in entering into those public offices. And almost 11% of our New Mexico population is veterans, and that representation matters at every level of our governance. Therefore, I support veterans' issues and I support our rural community and their issues within the DPNM and within New Mexico and advocate for those issues directly to our representatives that represent us in DC. So thank you so much for that question. I think it's a great question.
Thank you so much, Tiffany. Next, we move on to Augie.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I love talking about our rural communities because as a previous candidate in rural New Mexico, much like both of our hosts, Chairwoman Reisner and Chairman Nieto, it's something that's very interesting and very near and dear to me. In running for Congressional District 1 Vice Chair, I am committed to making sure that we get our leadership into the communities and active, so that way we can get them on par and in tune with what our communities need. And the way that we do this is by working at the precinct and ward level to get people engaged and out to forums where we can concentrate our impact in rural communities. And also so that we can work to build a sense of trust and reliabilities in some of the rural communities in Congressional District 1 that may not feel that they have the most voice. I live in Topeka, New Mexico, and just to describe a little bit of how trust varies, in running for Torrance County Commission District 3, I've seen that Topeka, where I currently live, is very blue, Torreon very red. So if we get our elected officials to forums in these small communities and throughout Congressional District 1, we are going to do a lot in building trust and getting Democrats elected, and working with our veterans communities, additionally making sure that veterans are able to see that their voices are heard and that their voices are elevated. But this also extends further into all of our disenfranchised and marginalized communities. I have an action plan within this more in-depth plan for Congressional District 1 that covers exact dates and when these meetings are to occur and tentative agendas, so that way me and Tiffany Stevens or whoever is to be elected can better flesh out issue areas to discuss. And so that's how I aim to act as that added layer of communication for our county level leadership, communities, and our elected officials. So thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much, Claudia and David, for your service, and thank you to all of our veterans and rural communities in the audience.
Thank you, Augie. I like your plan. It's very good. David, you're up next, sir.
And before we start the timer, I just want to say my money's on a Montoya in my race. You know, there 100% chance of a Montoya winning. Okay, so my answer. Okay. So now you can start the clock, Evelyn. So I think the first thing that we need to do is recognize that rural communities in CD1 are disenfranchised. It's hard not to be. You know, you need to recognize that being right next to Albuquerque or included with Albuquerque is disenfranchising by its very nature. And I think that's the first thing. I think the second thing is that you gotta get in the truck. I have a truck that I got for myself for my 50th birthday. It's a 1970 Chevy C20. It's beautiful. And it's old, and it's just smells like gas. The best thing that I could do is get in that truck and drive to rural areas and engage directly. Help someone run for office. Hop in the truck and walk a district for them. Serve as that bridge between the state party and those rural areas in CD1. We have tremendous amount of resources in Bernalillo County and in Albuquerque that we should be leveraging to those rural areas. You know, Tiffany's out there in the East Mountains at the headquarters every day trying to work hard to get Melanie elected. And I think that's kind of like the edge of the rural areas out there. And we've got to get out there and we've got to do those things, you know. And I know that the party is committed. I know that all of the candidates for chair and vice chair are committed towards reaching out to the rural areas. And I think that is a first step, is acknowledging that those communities are in fact disenfranchised, and then getting in the car and doing something about it. I remember as a Sandoval County chair, going to every chapter house, driving up to Cuba, you know, and meeting with those folks. Having your county meeting in a rural area, not at the chemos, would be a great start.
I agree. And I want to see that 1970 truck. I bet it smells like leaded gas, not just gasoline, huh? Okay, so David, thank you so much. And thanks to all three candidates. I'd like to now ask the third question, which, no surprise, has to do with veterans. So, New Mexico is one of 12 states that does not have a single veteran serving in our federal delegation, and the number of veterans serving in the New Mexico legislature has also declined to its lowest level in decades. New Mexico has a large veteran population, as Tiffany pointed out, about 11%. Veterans and family members have unique issues, and representation really matters. So a primary mission of our caucus is to recruit, support, and get veterans elected in New Mexico. How do you envision working together with our caucus CD vice chairs to achieve this mutual goal. And I would like to invite Tiffany to answer first.
Hi, thank you, Claudia. And very similar to how I want to reach to our rural communities is how I'd like to reach to our veterans community. I want to partner with the Veterans Caucus to attend events and support events. And I'd like to ensure that military families and issues are addressed and represented when we talk about state and local politics. I think we miss many opportunities to actually really advocate for those issues and to find solutions for those when we're talking about so many other problems that we're looking for solutions to. We need to make sure that we remember about those veterans issues when we're discussing them. But like David was saying, I want to support and actively campaign for those veterans that are showing interest into entering public office, because like we were saying, Claudia, is 11% of New Mexicans are veterans, and that representation matters at every single level of governance when we are talking about these solutions. And so we need to support veterans in running for those offices. And so I want to work with the Veterans Caucus and be a liaison and be an advocate and an ambassador for veterans issues, and to support the Veterans Caucus in any way that I possibly can. So thank you for the question, Claudia.
Thank you, Tiffany, for your answer. Augie, you are up next.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the opportunity. So I'd like to begin by saying I appreciate our veterans. I appreciate all the service you have been to our country. And additionally, I'd like to highlight my previous campaign for Torrance County Commission. And the reason that I want to do so is because one of the main points I discussed was mental health care and housing accessibility to veterans in rural New Mexico. I find veterans to be incredibly important to our communities and actually incremental to some elections, if not all of them. And so it is my commitment to work with the Veterans Caucus to ensure that we are getting volunteers into the caucus and utilizing its capacity to best effectuate change in rural New Mexico. And to begin best strategizing with the caucus, I intend to host organizational meetings and exploratory meetings with you guys to find best ways to target, communicate, and get veterans elected, as well as involved with the party. But I think an important point here is to discuss also the level of education when it comes to campaigns and elections. As a first-time candidate myself in this past election cycle, there were things that I didn't know. There were things that I learned along the way and the learning curve that I had to get over as a 20-year-old candidate in rural New Mexico. And I think these are things that we also can work with our veterans to get them elected into positions in the state legislature and in the future in our federal delegation. And that's what I'm committed to doing and committed to coming together with the Veterans Caucus to do, as well as the Rural Caucus to get rural veterans into elected office. And thank you so much for the question. Please feel free to give me a call if there are any future questions aside from this.
Thank you so much, Augie. And as a candidate myself for the first time, a little older than 20 years old, there was a lot I didn't know either, and I learned a tremendous amount. So the more we can help new candidates, the more successful they're going to be. So next, David, would you please respond to our question?
All right, so let me put on my veterans hat. Wait a minute, literally. Let me put on my veterans hat for this question. There we go. So I think the biggest thing that we could do to support veterans for running for office, and I challenge my opponent to vote for a veteran for CD1 vice chair. That's the first thing. But the second thing is support, continue to support the efforts that Claudia is making with the Veterans Caucus and the party, and be committed to that, and use that as a vehicle to bring veterans in, promote veterans, and help veterans get elected. That's the mission of the caucus, is to increase veterans' participation in the Democratic Party. And she is doing a great job. You know, it's amazing the things that we're doing right now in the Veterans Caucus that are investments, that are little seeds that we're planting, including establishing veteran intervention courts in rural areas to divert veterans away from potentially being in jail into programs that they can get back on track. The things that we're even trying to get a veteran in Torrance County to the VA. You know, that's our personal mission right now. There's a veteran that can't get there. It's those little things that add up to increasing the democratness of the veterans community. But it's also working hard to get veterans elected and identifying those veterans and helping them. Hey, I ran my first congressional campaign when I was Augustine's age back in college, you know, and so there are veterans out there with political experience, and bringing them to the forefront and working in conjunction with a caucus is what's going to make a difference for us. I'm really proud of my service, but other people serve the community too. Teachers are important, firemen are important, and their service is no less important than mine. So when we talk about helping veterans, we really need to push forward service as an idea. You know, it can't just be veterans doing it. We all have a role to play in making our nation a better place. And teachers are working just as hard right now as anybody else. Thank you.
Thank you, David. And thank you to all our CD1 Vice Chair candidates. Running for office is a tough job. I appreciate each and every one of you for putting yourselves out there and running for this position. Please join me in giving them a round of applause for all of our candidates. Next, we move on to our CD2 Vice Chair candidates. CD2 Vice Chair candidates will again have 1 minute for an opening statement. Francis Gonzalez, the floor is yours for your opening statement.
Okay, can you hear me?
We
Yes.
can.
Okay, because I can't. This is right. Okay, you can hear me? You're sure? Okay. All right. Anyway, my name is Francis Gonzalez, and I am the vice chair candidate for CD2. I am from rural New Mexico, and I was born and raised here in the rural area. One of the biggest reasons that I ran for this is that I'd really like to look at us having a job description for the vice chair position. I'm very concerned when I decided to run that there wasn't like a whole lot to look at except being the judicial counsel in that. And so I got really concerned because I looked at ways that we can liaison, be part of, and help to CD2 grow. We also have to take back our seat as well. And looking at you know, my cultural background as well, I feel is really important to getting more seat at the table. Also, my work with veterans in the background, I think is really important as well as I supported for 3 runs, our veteran candidate, Rudy Martinez.
Francis, thank you so much for your introduction. It's good to get to know you a little bit. I'd now like to invite Stephen Jones to introduce yourself. Well, Stephen Jones is either a man of few words or he's out in the Zoom ethos somewhere. Let's move on to Ms. Mona Trempe. Mona?
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to share my goals and plans for the CD2 Vice Chair position. I feel a strong connection to both of the host caucuses. I grew up in one of the most rural and poorest counties in northern Vermont, about this far from French-speaking Canada. My dad served in active duty during World War II, and I have my husband's younger son has served in the Navy. And as of last Friday, I'm an active member of the Veterans and Military Families Caucus, thanks to a lovely conversation with Claudia. So I will happy to be here tonight, and I'll be sharing more of my ideas in my answers to the questions. Thank you again for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Francis and Mona, for your opening statements. We will now move on to one of 3 questions that we will be asking you here tonight. The first question is the general question. The powers and duties of the CD vice chairs are essentially undefined and consequently not understood and undervalued by Democrats in the state. It is our opinion that this should not be the case because it is an underutilization of a valuable asset. How will you define your role? Will you attend DPNM executive board meetings and be a conduit of information from and to party officials in your district, such as a caucus, a county, and also ward leaders? First, we have Mona.
Okay, so I think a major role for CD vice chairs should be to serve as a resource for information and a catalyst for sharing of ideas among all elements of the party, from the state party leadership on down through the many steps to precinct chairs. Clearly, you can't speak to everybody, but I have some ideas about how you can build relationships and share ideas. So I really want to work on strengthening county parties throughout the district by providing useful information, practical advice, and assistance in finding effective solutions. And my plans for accomplishing this include not only active participation in all state and county party meetings, but also promoting relationships and sharing of ideas among party leaders at all levels through frequent conversations, holding district-wide conferences, and also holding smaller special interest meetings. I like to publish a regular newsletter to share activities, events, and tips. And most importantly, I would like to provide training materials and organize workshops so that folks do not have to continually reinvent the wheel. When I took the helm as chair of the Democratic Party in Doñana County, there was this very steep learning curve, and it took a lot of time that could have been better used in the important work of recruiting voters, recruiting candidates, and getting out the vote. So I'm a retired faculty member. I've also had a career as a scientific administrator. I have strong skills in communication and in teaching and in organizing people and events. I have some concrete ideas for how to serve in this role, and I believe I have the skills to accomplish those plans. Thank you.
Thank you, Mona. Thank you for your answer and for your well thought out plan. Next, I'd like to turn it over to Frances. Ma'am?
There we go. Oh, okay. Anyway, for that's a really good question. Anyway, one of the things that I feel is really important, one of the important roles that I see as the CD2 vice chair is to, besides being a part of the leadership, to be able to take information back and forth between the county parties when attending the meetings. I'm taking their information also back, issues that come up and things of that sort. The other thing too is that being a grassroots organizer, one of the biggest things I'd like to do is really look at some of our data and where we lacked and where we need to strengthen. And then from that, talk with of course, the ward chairs who know the best and the precinct chairs, and then of course the county leadership on the best way that they need to go or feel they need to go and what they need and those resources. So just as what Ms. Trent said, the same thing is that we need to be liaisons between the upper leadership and then the way that we look at when we work with the other folks, so that way we can be in between. If they call and say we have problems with this area, we need this or we need that, we need to be available for it. I'd also like to look at really getting together to teach people how to lobby. But first we need a job description, then how we're gonna lobby, how we can do some things, making sure that I'm available, accessible, and supportive in those areas. Training, what kind of training do you need? Get the resources and the folks that are subject matter experts in those areas. Look at the organizing, what kind of organizing do you need? Are you advanced? Are you at beginning? Have you had none? Are you a new ward chair? Are you a former ward chair? Do you want specific training we can't offer or that we need to find somewhere? Look at those kind of things. I also have been in conversations with the vice chair candidates, as well as looking at how we could maybe have a little bit of money if we needed for training different things.
Thank you, Frances. Thank you for your answer. You've also thought it through very carefully. Thank you to both of the candidates. And I would now like to ask the second question, which has to do with veterans. So New Mexico is one of 12 states that does not have a single veteran in their federal delegation. And the number of veterans serving in the New Mexico legislation is as low as it's been in decades. New Mexico has a large veteran population, almost 11%. Veterans and family members have unique issues, and representation really matters. A primary mission of our caucus is to recruit, support, and get elected veterans into the New Mexico offices. How do you envision working together with our caucus CD vice chairs to achieve this goal? And I would like to ask Mona to answer it first.
Thank you. So I have the pleasure of knowing the current CD2 vice chairs in the Veterans and Military Family Caucus well. I consider both of them to be personal friends. I've worked with Shannon Reynolds on local issues and campaigns. I run into him all the time at the Federation of Democratic Women meetings. Jeff Swanson and I have worked closely on a number of party activities, being chairs of neighboring counties. So with these relationships already established, I think I have a good foundation for continuing to work with the caucus. In fact, recently, as Jeff was reaching out to try to build the caucus, I was pleased to be able to connect him with some members in both Diana and Grant County. As CD2 Vice Chair, I expect to be meeting veterans in my travels throughout the district. This certainly will provide opportunities to connect many more folks with the caucus and to help achieve the mission of recruiting, supporting, and electing veterans. And I plan to be a very active member. I don't join organizations unless I'm going to be active. So I hope to learn from all of you already in the caucus about what I don't know, and I think it's a great opportunity, and I'm excited to be a member, and I think being an active member of the caucus and hopefully CD2 Vice Chair will be a good match and provide us lots of opportunities to bring the issues forward to the right ears and to find veterans to represent us in our legislative offices. Thank you.
Thank you, Mona. Francis, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you. One of the biggest things that I have found in working with a lot of the veterans is that one of the biggest ways for us to work to be able to get them elected is I actually have actually worked with our veteran organizations here and helped them with fundraisers and different of those sorts of stuff. One of the biggest things that I think would be a lot of fun too is looking at the veterans caucuses and inviting them to our rural events, and also looking at and calling it membership drives, and being able to get, as you become getting the membership drives together, start really looking at some of the veterans. I'm very involved with a lot of the different veteran organizations, along with looking at our lack of our veteran service officers and the way that they lack in the rural areas, and just a lot of the different, having to travel so far, and the kind of medications, what they had to struggle to get COVID. I would look at getting these veterans and discussing with them what it would take for them to run, and having Rudy Martinez, and having worked with him, he and I can work hand in hand together on that. And we've actually looked at trying to get a lot of these guys and gals to really start looking at their service and to really start looking at what they could do, support, and if they decide to run, to help them, walk them through the steps, to support their candidacy. And the reason that it's so important to have the veterans in there is because they're involved with organizations, they are tied in with other veterans. Veterans feel a lot more comfortable talking to veterans. And then you also look at their different ages, and you look at the different types that they had their service. And it's so really important that we tie that together. And a lot of people forget about our women veterans. There's specific issues that we look at for women veterans and where they feel more comfortable, especially in getting their treatment. And this is really important in the legislation to get this passed.
Thank you so much, Francis, and thank you to both of you for the answers to that question. We are now moving on to our third question of the night, which deals with rural. We foresee your role as being the liaison between elected officials and the rural activist communities. If you agree, how does a CD Vice Chair establish and maintain the connection between state legislators, Washington, D.C., and rural New Mexico to the benefit of rural constituents?
That's a tough question. I'm glad I don't have to answer it, but I'd like to hear what Francis has to say.
Okay. Well, one of the different things that I look at is, especially working with the elected officials, is start with especially your officials that are from home and the relationships that you have, and those that I have met during the lobbying. One of the really important is that we got so many different organizations involved this year to help our veterans, sisters and brothers in the lobbying for the bills that we saw it would happen. So we divided our division into various areas. We found veterans to help with the vets, and we found people that were subject matter experts in their areas that they were lobbying for. Recruit veterans that are interested in doing legislative work. Also legislature and the lobbying, the relationships that we have, introduce them and get them with relationships as well. Also taking a lot of the issues from our rural to a lot of our legislature and reps is during the interim sessions. It's really important during that time that we're able to sit down with the legislators and with the different caucuses and with the interim committees and be able to start presenting what our issues were, what they are, the kind of bills that we need, and how they'll benefit the whole state or certain regions, CD2, and in different areas. Since we have a very high number, especially in CD2, of the amount of our veterans that have served per capita, we also can find a way that we can take some of these issues and also bring them to a lot of our meetings, different county meetings with our Democrats. And then I would foresee having town halls so that we can actually get the public involved in supporting our veterans and our legislative bills that will look at different areas that encompass a veteran on the bills, but all the other areas that go around them as well, and make it a more of a well-rounded. And one of the important things I look at is following the bills.
Thank you so much, Francis. Next, we move on to Mona.
Thank you. So as I've talked about, a major goal for me as vice chair is to promote relationships and communication among Democratic leaders throughout the district, and bringing together leaders from multiple counties who share interests and concerns has the distinct benefit of creating a unified and louder voice in this particular for our rural, not only for our rural communities, but also other underrepresented Democratic groups. Here in Doña Ana County, we have to reach out to our rural Spanish-speaking Democrats, and that's been something that's a struggle. We have to. Another thing is our young Democrats, and we have young Democrats in rural areas as well as in the urban areas. So we have to have a plan for reaching out to a lot of different underrepresented groups. But again, building those relationships, getting people to speak with a united voice amplifies that voice and brings the issues forward. In my experience, our Democratic legislators in New Mexico are really highly engaged with their constituents, and they're willing to participate in party events. Sometimes you have a whole herd of them and you wish that there weren't quite so many. So I think in the course of building these associations among Democratic leaders and my participation in party activities, there's going to be lots and lots of opportunities to enhance awareness of rural concerns and really promote connections among the people who can really address those issues. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mona. And thank you to both of you, Mona and Francis, our CD2 vice chair candidates, for answering and being here tonight and answering those questions. Can the audience please join me in doing a round of applause for our vice chair for CD2 candidates?
Good job.
Thank you so much.
Thank you both.
Next, we will move on to CD3 vice chair candidates. Each will also have just a 1-minute opening statement. I would like to invite Noyola Archibek for her opening statement.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, veterans, for your service. I am Noyola Archibek, excuse me, a bilingual speaking native New Mexican, a graduate of Mora High School, and retired from the State of New Mexico Department of Transportation. I am co-founder and past president of the San Miguel County Federation of Democratic Women, as well as a life member of the VFW Ladies Auxiliary Post 1131 in Mora. Daddy's battles took him to Normandy in northern France and Ardennes Rhineland in Central Europe. I have been a Democrat and actively involved in politics since 2008. I have volunteered on Victoria's campaigns: Deb Haaland, Liz Stefanix, Brian Colon, Michelle Lujan Grisham, Teresa Fernandez Ledger, Just to name a few, I was a member of New Mexico's Electoral College in 2017 and served on New Mexico State Central Committee from 2019 to 2020. Through my activism and leadership in the party, I promote unity and success for New Mexico Democrats. Thank you, Veterans Caucus. Claudia.
Thank you, Noyola. We appreciate that. And now we'd like to hear from Christy Holden.
Hi, first of all, I want to thank Pete and Greg Seeley and Claudia. This is the most organized Democratic meeting I've ever been in. You did great. And I would be pleased to work with any of these candidates who are running for office. They've all got great backgrounds. I'm going to do this really quickly. I've been in politics since I was 10. That was my first door knocking. I have worked in Democratic politics in 4 states, in Oregon, in Colorado, in Minnesota, and now in New Mexico. I have an MBA. I was a business owner. I have also run a number of nonprofit organizations which led me into politics. I've been a fundraiser. I've been a lobbyist. I have drafted bills with senators and congressmen. I'm a member of the Retake Our Democracy, an unapologetic progressive. I'm a member of the Adelante Progressive Caucus. And for 8 years, I ran the the Minnesota Women's Political Caucus and served on their national board. So I know a great deal about campaigns, including policy director, fundraising director, campaign manager for local races and statewide governor races. I think I've done almost everything outside of the party. Now I'm giving my time to the party. Some of the skills that I bring are great organization, have a lot of structure, a lot of mediation skills. I've done.
Thank you so much, Christy. And thank you so much for the kind words. Next, we have Joe McCaffrey.
Okay, I too want to thank everyone for all of their kind interactions. You voted for me so that I could represent you at the 2016 and the 2020 Democratic National Conventions. But it all starts very, very, when you're very young. I voted the first time when John Kennedy ran the first time. So he and I sort of went in parallel. I voted for John Kennedy. Later, of course, voted for Johnson, Lyndon Johnson, who was a
Joe, thank you very much for your opening remarks. Now I'd like to invite Ben Salazar to introduce yourself, sir.
Thank you, Claudia. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ben Salazar. I'm a candidate for CD3 Vice Chair. And I like to use analogies in the idea that you compare things to how you've lived your life. And so as a musician, I always go to the point of saying, you know what, is that if you've lived the blues, then you can play the blues. And so again, I relate that to my life and my candidacy for CD3 Vice Chair, and the fact that I am a military veteran, Vietnam era vet, and also have 3 other brothers that were also Vietnam vets. And so I know the experiences of dealing and living in a veteran family. And more than anything, I think it's important that we recognize that this is a crossroads in terms of what we are as a Democratic Party. There is room to grow. And my proudest achievement as a Democrat is to have sat at the state capitol and signed the Electoral College vote, getting Joseph Biden and Kamala Harris elected as president and vice president, and getting Donald Trump out there because he did not understand what veterans need. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Next, we have Greg Sonnenfeld.
Thank you. So My name is Greg Sonnenfeld, and I want to tell you a little about where I'm coming from. I'm a multicultural native New Mexican, born and raised between Las Cruces and Santa Fe. I was raised in poverty. I lived in a Las Cruces barrio in a trailer in Lamy and later in rural El Dorado. And my family lacked basic food security and health security. And I know a lot of the challenges are rural working poor faced because of it. That being said, I focused on my studies. I attended New Mexico State University for engineering physics. I received a Princeton fellowship. I interned at LANL for civilian research and received the NASA Achievement Award. So I consider myself a FDR-style Democrat. I was recruited by County Chair Susan Popovich into her administration, serving as a parliamentarian, IT chair, and rules committee member. This is my third term on the state central committee. I've assisted in running multiple county canvassing campaigns, run multiple SEC campaigns, written successful legislations, intervened in PRC cases, and just done a ton of organizing.
Thank you so much, Greg, and thanks to all the candidates. And now I would like to ask our first question. The powers and duties of the CD vice chairs are essentially undefined and consequently not understood nor valued by Democrats in the state. It is our opinion that that should not be the case because it's an underutilization of a valuable asset. How will you define your role? Will you attend DPNM executive board meetings and be a conduit of information from and to party officials in your district, such as caucuses, county and ward leaders? And I would like to invite Christy to answer the question first. Ma'am?
Absolutely agree with you. When I looked into this position, I was appalled that it was so undefined. Let me tell you one thing that I did in Minnesota as head of the Women's Political Caucus. I went to every county, I went to every town that had more than 400 people living there. I met in church bases, homes, wherever. We organized 10,000 women within one summer so that every time there was an issue that came up that needed a family vote or a women's vote, we could gin a block of phone calls before cell phones, before computers. We did all of that. I will do that again. I think that needs to happen. We need to hear directly from the voters. So I will do that. And I want to be a bridge to the board, to all the caucuses, to the membership. That's what's been missing here. I'm tired of listening to Albuquerque. Let's get out there and do the job.
Thank you so much, Christy. Next, we have Joe. Joe, I believe you are muted.
Go. And I must answer this.
We hear you loud and clear.
Okay. So yes, I will go to all of the DPNM executive board meetings, which I understand we didn't hold any for the last year, and all of the judicial council meetings, which I understand were a zoo last year because of some of the allegations. Now, getting past that, I will in fact have regular meetings with Congressman Teresa Ledger Fernandez because her brothers, 3 or so of them, live in Las Vegas, and one of them lives just down the street from me. She's been to my house already several times because her brother is the chair of the San Miguel Democratic Party. Okay, so that's puts her and me and you on a fast track. Senator Ben Ray Lujan has been to my house as well. I think he's been there a few more times than Teresa, but senators don't usually go around to people's houses and I don't expect to see much of him. The governor's been to my house a couple of times as well. So that's where it is.
Okay, thank you, Joe. And now I'd like to invite Ben to answer that question. Sir?
Thank you. Well, first of all, I think we need to understand the fact that the constituents in CD3, it really is about them. It is not about us. And I think we need to take that to heart as a candidate, or if we are successfully elected to that position. And so the fact that the roles have not been clearly defined provides a great opportunity to establish a template and a format about how we proceed forward, so that, as referred to earlier, that part of the downfall of the Democratic Party is that we get folks elected into office, they don't set a template or something that is groundwork to follow in future years. And they're not to say that the formula works for everybody all the same, because we all are different personalities and different characters, but the approach should be the same. And then one of the things that I always like to remind people is the fact that, you know, CD3 is very widespread in terms of territorial territory and ground that we would need to cover. So with the aid of modern day technology, the ability to get out a little bit more and to interact with people at different levels in terms of finding out what the constituency needs and how they help us define the role, I think that's the most important thing that we recognize as CD3 candidates. And as the saying goes, you know, is that we all may live on in the same democratic world, but we're not always on the same frequency. So hopefully we'll find that frequency that gets us all connected. Thank you.
Thank you. Greg, you're up next.
Oh, thank you. So I really like this question. And well, whenever I've had a party position, I've always utilized it fully. When I was a ward member, I co-organized the neighborhood outreach barbecue and multiple canvassing events under David Thompson. As a county rules member, I led a full review of a 94-page bylaws of the state party and a complete rewrite of our county rules. As an SEC member, I co-authored our 2019 resolution for the Green New Deal for DCCC fair elections. And in 2020, the resolution for alleviation of the economic disadvantage of the DPM chair. I've hosted Democratic Party land commissioner forums. I've assisted in governor forums. Also in 2017, I had built a successful DPM online wiki that actually facilitated SEC deliberation. It had really great engagement. I'd like to recreate it. So I think the role of the CD3 chair, first and foremost, is to get work done. So as CD3 chair, I'll certainly attend meetings. I'll ensure we have documentation and institutional memory. I think another role of the CD3 chair should be to provide our CD3 New Mexican communities with good governance and economic opportunity. One way is to elect Democrats. I've spent 5 years doing that, but that's not the only way. I see an opportunity in hosting listening sessions where legislators can listen to their rural communities and develop a more bi-directional relationship. I think that's important. And I see an opportunity here to set up policy forums to bring in community members, SEC, nonprofits, businesses that are beneficial to the community to create legislation and bring that to legislature. So building forums and work groups, creating relationships, turning those into concrete legislation, electing rural and veteran Democrats is something we will do, and mutual aid between communities and our parties is how everyone wins. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Nayola, you are up next.
Okay, as a member of the executive team, I will participate in further defining the CD vice chair roles. I will serve as the liaison between all the counties in my district and the DPNM. As I have learned from my own experience and having had conversations with state central committee members over the last few weeks, communities up north often feel underrepresented and unheard. This is simply not okay. I will attend as many meetings as I am able and stay up to date on current information. I will ensure that the information gets to the counties. There is nothing worse than someone not following through. A simple return phone call or email is always appreciated. Just communication to and from. And I agree with Ms. Holden that this is the best put together forum that we have had a chance to attend. So thanks, Christy. With you right on that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you all for your answers to question number 1. Next, we're going to move on to our rural question. We foresee your role as being the liaison between elected officials and rural activist communities. If you agree, how does a CD vice chair establish and maintain that connection between state legislators, Washington, D.C., and rural New Mexico to the benefit of rural constituents? Joe, you are up first.
Okay. I will start by dividing the CD3 into 2 intellectually different pieces. The piece on the west and the piece on the east, because the problems are different on the east and the west. On the east, you're going to have to recognize that your population is very, very, very sparse. Harding County has some 600 people living in it. And you compare that to Albuquerque, no, you cannot. But the problems that these 600 people have are still quite real. So I'm going to start with Pete Campos. Pete Campos lives on 5th Street. I live on 7th Street. We're neighbors and friends. He and I have met maybe 24 times over the years to hash out various problems and to do various things for me. He represents Colfax, Mora, Harding, half of San Miguel, and all of Guadalupe. Then we're going to add to that discussion group Senator Liz Stefanik, who represents Lincoln, Torrance, and the other half of San Miguel, and the lost half of Santa Fe. We're not going to go out and invite in the members of Union County because he's the representative of Cowboy.
Joe, thank you so much for that question. I think that's one of the toughest ones. Ben, it's now your turn, sir.
Yes, thank you. Well, the first thing that I like to recognize is the fact that instead of being a rural advocate, I'd like to point out that I've been a rural advocate since I was able to get involved in politics. And so having been born and raised in Curry County, that's about as rural as you can get in terms of the geographical area that we deal with. So, I think understanding that idea, the fact that having grown up in a rural community and understanding its needs and concerns and being a lifelong advocate puts me in a unique position in the idea that, I'm very recognizant of what happens in terms of how sometimes rural communities can get ignored and disengaged. The other thing I think it's important to remember is the fact that, there's a utilization of resources that are available out there to us. So I think we would be totally naive to misunderstand the idea that there are agencies out there that can assist us with data, information. But again, most importantly, it goes back to addressing the needs and concerns of those rural communities by asking them, what are your concerns and your needs? And we're going to find that there are common threads there that exist among all these rural communities. And we'd be smart to listen to what needs to be input, and not so much about I can do this or I can do that, but how can I help you achieve what your needs and concerns and your goals are in terms of living in a rural community and being a rural Democrat. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ben. Greg, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So I want to highlight a legislative campaign of mine from 2020. I had approached congressional candidate and Rep. Joseph Sanchez with a climate change investment idea. Rep. Sanchez comes from a traditional rural New Mexico community, and when it comes to renewable energy, I'm one of the most progressive organizers in New Mexico. But what we did have was a similar cultural background. I was raised Roman Catholic. I lived rural. And back in the day, I actually used to make the drive up to Espanola to hang out at a friend's dad's auto shop. Fun times. So we were able to have a beer, he hosted an outstanding barbecue, and we had a real conversation about our needs. And through this, we authored the State Renewable Investment Plan. I brought in Commissioner Garcia Richards with the help of Deputy Taryn Nix. A great colleague, James Rivera from the Caucus tribe, helped bring in Native support. Our Santa Fe progressive, Andre Romero, came on board with MLG staff and the State Investment Council to follow. We passed the legislation. The SIC formed the State Renewable Investment Program. It's on their website, and it places investment from our $28 billion permanent fund into New Mexico renewable infrastructure. So we found common goals that worked for everyone. It expanded our state revenue, it helped address climate change, and it created economic opportunity for rural New Mexicans. So I intend to create more of these coalitions to promote rural issues and rural economic development. I'll make the drive. I'm going to be frequenting San Juan this next year. I've been working to save rural jobs, converting Westmoreland coal into a renewable energy company. There's some other initiatives, including industrial hemp and solar manufacturing with LGP I want to bring into these communities. So overall, I say we build these coalitions, form in-person networks, build online communities, and bring grassroots create grassroots legislations and bring those to our legislators. And I've done it, and I'll keep doing it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Greg. Noyola, you are up next.
Okay, I grew up in one of the many rural counties of CD3, where my family carried on the traditions. My 13 siblings and I played in the arroyos and the acequias. By having worked on so many victorious campaigns in New Mexico over the past 15 years, I have had the opportunity to meet local officials, state elected officials, as well as hardworking Democrats throughout not only CD3, but the entire state of New Mexico. I am committed and will utilize existing relationships and build upon new ones. We need to remember that rural counties are just as important to New Mexico as urban ones. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Noyola. And now, Christy, we'd like to hear your response, ma'am.
Well, I have lived in 4 states, and in 2 of those, I lived very rural, as well as living rural in the country of Mexico. I have worked with very diverse populations from the Ojibwe in the Dakotas, the Somali refugees in Minnesota, and the Huichol people in Mexico. So I'm pretty sure I can sit down with some people that I've never met and understand their rural issues. For example, meeting face-to-face is really key, developing those relationships. Secondly is listening deeply. I'm a trained facilitator, trained mediator. I know how to get the meat off the conversation and put it into a plan that then can be approved by the people in that caucus. I'd like to help do that, to form a plan for both the rural people and the veterans in our CD3. I'd also like to educate people about issues and bring in the experts. We've done a lot of that here in Taos County, and it's strengthened our numbers tremendously. Last, I'd like to identify potential candidates for office. I'm pretty good at that, having run a couple of campaigns. For example, Teresa, when I first met her, I said, that girl's got it. When I met Cristina Ortiz, that girl's got it. Let's help them get elected. Last, I'd like to help develop some campaign materials and support financially to make sure that those candidates are successful. I hope that answers your question.
It certainly does, Christy. Thank you very much. What a background. So I'd like to thank all the candidates for their well thought out answer to that tough question. And I'd like to ask the third question. Veterans. New Mexico is one of 12 states that does not have a single veteran serving on our federal delegation. And the number of veterans serving in the New Mexico legislature has also declined to its lowest level in decades. New Mexico has a large veteran population, almost 11%. Veterans and family members have unique issues, and representation matters. A primary mission of our caucus is to recruit, support, and get veterans elected in New Mexico. How do you, as CD3 chair, vice chair, how do you envision working together with our caucus, CD vice chairs, to achieve this goal? And I would like to start with Ben.
Thank you, Claudia. Great question. I brought up this point 10 years ago at a state convention for the American Legion, which I am a member of for the Department of New Mexico, in the idea that many of our veteran issues, both on a national and a state level, were slowly being diminished because we had people being elected that had not served in the military and did not understand our needs and did not understand the idea of the fact that each of our military conflicts are unique to themselves, and the idea that look how long it took for PTSD to be recognized from the Vietnam War. I finally realized after many years that I had an uncle that two uncles actually that were World War II veterans and POWs, and realized later on in life the effects of what happened from them having suffered PTSD, which at that point in time they called it shell shock. But the idea that, again, if you don't understand or you haven't lived or you haven't seen the idea of your family members or someone close to you going through those processes, then it's very hard to understand. And so the idea, the fact is, once again, is that there's a very good point in the idea that we have leaders within the American Legion, within the VFW, with the Veterans of Foreign Wars, within the Disabled Veterans Organization. Many of those people are coaches. Many of those people are community activists. So again, it goes back to the idea that, we talk about outreach. So the question is, how deep are you willing to go in that outreach? Are we willing as CD3 vice chairs willing to seek out those individuals that basically are members of the community that not only stand out in their organizations, but within the community themselves, because those are community leaders. With the proper training and with proper instruction and proper guidance, we can turn them into candidates. But it has to be a unified front, and not only in CD3, but CD1 and CD2. And so the idea again is we're all living in the same world, but we're just not connecting on the same frequency. So the idea is if there's something happening in CD1 and CD2 that can basically aid CD3 in doing the same thing and then connecting all these veterans and getting.
Thank you so much, Ben. Next, we are on to Greg.
Oh, thank you. So first off, I want to thank our veterans. They're some of our hardest working government employees. They get some of the worst jobs you can imagine, and they do them with pride. My grandfather served in World War II, and he was a proud Marine until he passed 50 years later. So he was a great inspiration for my own public service. That being said, our government certainly bears full responsibility for the trauma, injuries, mental health challenges, homelessness caused by their wars created by the military-industrial complex. They don't always act like it's their responsibility, but it is. So that's something we need to address, and putting our veterans, those dedicated to serving veterans into political positions, is an essential piece of that. It's a goal I will certainly support, and I'd love to have that conversation with the Veterans Caucus. I was proud to see Harold Pope elected. I had many great conversations with him regarding renewable energy and was a big supporter of his campaign. I'd like to return the favor and help with your issues, electing veterans, organizing veteran legislation, and make that a goal for Northern New Mexico. I'd like to assist in hosting policy forums to create veteran benefiting legislation. I've co-ran, trained, and ran data operations for campaigns and policy canvassing. That's a skill I could bring to you. I have my own resources and social media mailing list I could also bring to the table for the veteran candidates. I also have some, some veteran relationships. I do need more, but that I would like to bring into the party. I have a close friend, neighbor, and colleague who chairs an aid-based chapter of the Santa Fe American Legion. I'd love to get him help and also have him helping you. I'm working with several veterans who are pursuing a veteran-managed worker cooperative in Taos. I'd love to bring them in. So overall, I'd like to bring all these people together, promote these relationships and get them into organizations and work groups for mutual aid. Thank you.
So much, Greg. Manola, you're up next.
Seriously, guys, you won't believe this, but during a parade, I am the one whistling and clapping the loudest when our veterans pass. And I will look around and wonder why the other people are not doing the same. I love our veterans. I will use any resource available, as it is crucial to expanding the base of support for Democrats, because as you demonstrated, veteran voices are becoming unheard of in New Mexico politics. My dad served in World War II. He was on D-Day on the beach. We're very glad and very lucky that he did come home. I also had 4 brothers serve in the military in different branches. I am a member of the VFW Ladies Auxiliary, Post 1131 in Mora. And I am also a new member to this organization, the Veterans Families Caucus. Thanks also to my conversation with Claudia Risner. I think it's a great cause. And again, thank all of you for listening to all of us. Thank you so much.
I'm sorry. Thank you so much, Noyola, and welcome to our caucus. It was really nice speaking with you the other night. And now, Christy, we'd love to hear your answer to that question. Ma'am?
I'm not a veteran. My father was a spy. He procured materials and redirected them to the United States for the Manhattan Project. But because he was never listed, he never received any benefits. That's the extent of my personal knowledge about veterans. I'm really grateful that you're educating me right now about how many veterans there are that are so underrepresented in our government, in our state legislature, as well as in our congressional delegation. So thank you for that. What I can offer again is the meet face-to-face, the listening. We have 7 veteran groups up here in Taos County. I do know some of the people in those communities, and I would go to them first and have them advise me about what I need to know in order to go out and meet with more veteran groups throughout CD3. I also like to add a little piece here that's not directly related to veterans, but I think we need a party that inspires. We have so much going for us, and that is the piece that I have found to be missing since I moved to New Mexico 8 years ago. Where is the enthusiasm? Where is the infectiousness that makes people want to come forward and be candidates like all of us have done tonight? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Christy. Joe, you are up next.
Okay. I'm up next. Spotlight for your on the video for everyone. We know that in New Mexico, the recruitment centers for military personnel are geographically distributed. They aren't uniform at all. They're distributed around Albuquerque, around Clovis, around Alamogordo. And so if we're going to recruit active duty personnel, you're pretty much going to have to start in one of those centers. Now, as the rest of you, my father was in World War II. He collected some, I don't know, 6 battle stars, I think. But he never talked much about World War II. So I went to work for the Department of Defense, Naval Research Laboratory. We were in the anti-submarine warfare business. So we flew a lot out of Iceland, out of Keflavik, looking for Soviet submarines. We flew a lot out of Rota, looking for Soviet submarines in the Med instead of in the GI-UK gap. And so that gives me a lot of common experience. Unlike a lot of you.
Thank you so much, Joe. Really appreciate it. Thank you to all of our candidates for CD3 Vice Chair race. We appreciate you taking the time to join us tonight. Audience, please join me in giving a round of applause to our candidates for CD3 Vice Chair.
Awesome job, all of you. Thank you so much.
We are now moving on to our final race of the night, that of treasurer. Do we have Ray Ellen here? I believe we were told that she was in the list of attendees. I don't know if she's in our panelist forum. Therefore, I don't know if she will be able to respond to our questions.
Peter, I'm just hearing that she's coming on to the link shortly. Ray Ellen, there you are, just in the
Here
nick of
I am. Sorry, I thought I was on the right link. I was on the Facebook link. I don't know how I did that, but yeah.
No worries. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Like
Thanks
the
for having
Yeah, absolutely. Like the CD Vice Chair candidates, you will have 1 minute for an opening statement, and the floor is yours.
Okay, well, I'm Ray Ellen Smith. I'm a native New Mexican. I grew up in Albuquerque and on the Navajo Indian Reservation. I graduated from Valley High in Albuquerque. I've been with PricewaterhouseCoopers for 30 years, which is an accounting and auditing firm. I'm a retired CPA. I've been on the State Central Committee. I'm currently on the Budget and Finance Committee. I'm also the president of Indivisible Nob Hill and blah, blah, blah. The main thing I want to tell you about me is why I'm running. And that is because I want to make sure we are reporting transparently out to all Democrats. I want to make sure we're aligning our spending to our county, to our state and party platforms. I want to make sure we're delivering financial transparency, giving you financial information that you can know and understand and looks like something you might receive from your bank that makes sense to you. I also want to make sure that we're developing a substantial grassroots sustainer program. So one promise I'm going to make to all of you right now is I'm going to ask every one of you to give us $10 a month. So
Thank you, Ray Ellen, for your introduction. I would say let's go on to the other candidates, but this is going to be all you from here on out. So you weren't here in the beginning because you were at a meeting, but you're going to get a yellow sign when you've got 10 seconds to go and a hot pink sign and you'll be muted. So I'm going to ask the first question. It's a general question. In general, Democratic voters do not understand what the DPNM spends money on. There is a perception that the party is in a continuous fundraising mode, yet local candidates, county chairs, and voters don't see a tangible benefit to the money raised. Would you clarify if this is a lack of communication or if the money doesn't actually benefit anyone outside of the party staff? And in either case, how would you change this situation? Because I bet you will.
You can bet that I will. So let me start by saying, as a member of the Budget and Finance Committee for the last 2 years, the question you just asked is the exact reason I'm running. I don't know where our money is spent. I am just learning it now as an unopposed incoming treasurer. This is something that has been very frustrating to me as a Budget and Finance Committee member, is not understanding exactly how our money was spent and it's not being reported to you. This is an absolute promise I will make, is that we all have to know that. And wouldn't it be great to know that our spending aligns to our party goals and what's actually outlined in our platform? If our platform is supposed to state what we stand for and then we need to back it up with the dollars that we spend. And I would love the opportunity to be able to prove that to you and to show you that that's where our money is spent. I can't actually answer the question, but give me 3 months in the job and I guarantee you I'll know, and I'll be right back here reporting.
Okay, terrific. Well, let's stay with this outstanding candidate. And Mayor Peter, I think the question is yours, sir.
Yes, our second question deals with rural issues. How can the role of DPNM treasurer extend to becoming a resource for the Rural Caucus and the communities they represent? Could you describe a possible fundraising project you might be able to offer inexperienced rural activists to use as a guide to kickstart a fundraising drive in their community?
So this is such a great question, and I'm so glad I got it. And I'm actually going to flip it upside down. I think that the DPNM state party needs to give money to you. We don't need you to give money to us. We need to give money to you. So when I said that I was actually going to ask all of you to give $10 a month, that's exactly what we're going to do with it. We're going to take that money. We're going to fund our party activities. We're going to give it to the caucuses, and we're going to give it to the county parties. I have started a grant program in Bernalillo County, since I'm the treasurer for Bernalillo County, for ward chairs. They can fill out a simple little form and ask us to give them $200 to do whatever they want with, as long as it's developing the Democratic Party base. I want to do something exactly like that at the state party level. And I think we need, you know, if we can get the funding for it, I would like to not have the parties have to raise their own money. We want to give the money to you. That's my goal. So that's how I would flip that around. So the plan I have is called Give 10 to Win, and we're going to be coming and we're going to ask everybody for $10 a month. So I think it's doable, and I'm going to say that at least 20 more times. Thanks.
Perfect. I like that. All right. So now the third question. It's about veterans. Would you be willing to provide training and assistance to any DPNM caucus treasurer, including the Veterans Caucus? This is especially helpful as a new caucus is forming or an established caucus shifts from not having financial transactions to having them. As treasurer, will you provide oversight on the financial reports of caucuses and counties and liaise with the Secretary of State to improve compliance with their requirements? Ray Ellen?
Yeah, this is a fabulous question. So there's been a new law passed that says that affiliates of DPNM include the caucuses and the county parties. So as affiliates, it will become my job to make sure you're in compliance with the state Secretary of State reporting requirements, and that you're keeping, and that every caucus and county party is keeping accurate records. So not only will I help, but I will develop training programs. I will come to you. We will work on this on a monthly basis as your reports become due. We'll come up with strategies and procedures to help you. I've been doing this for the Democratic Party of Bernalillo County now for 2 years. I've automated my process. I can report, I can do all the Secretary of State reporting in about 2 hours time. And that's for massive numbers of contributions that come into Bernalillo County. I know I can help the caucuses, and I know I can help the counties develop these same procedures into repeatable processes that meet all the state requirements. And since that will now become my job, I will absolutely be there to help out.
Well, that is really fantastic. Okay. Mayor Peter, I think I'm taking the words right out of your mouth.
Thank you so much, Ray Ellen, for joining us tonight. Audience, please join me in giving her a round of applause, our candidate for treasurer.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I also want to call back all of our candidates here tonight. If you guys can all come back on camera. And I want the audience to give you guys all one final round of applause. You guys were all amazing. Your answers were amazing. And thank you all so much for spending your evening with us. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Well, I'd like to take
again. I want to thank everyone for joining us here. Oh, sorry. Just real quick, I want to thank everyone from night one that joined us, and also now on night two. So thank you guys all. We appreciate, again, everyone coming with us. I now want to invite my wonderful co-host, Claudia, back for her closing remarks. And I'm sorry that I cut you off there.
Thank you so much, Peter. It's been a fun night, just like Monday night was. And I'd just like to wrap it up a little bit. I think we want to remember we're going to leave this meeting, these forums, with some simple goals. No Republican is going to run unopposed in New Mexico. And we're going to get more residents from the rural communities and more veterans and military family members to run as candidates. And they're going to be trained, and they're not going to make financial mistakes. And we're going to work closely together, these caucuses, the 8 or 9 or 10 caucuses, with the party. And we want it to be a mutually beneficial relationship. We have to collaborate. I think we're at a crossroads. Ben mentioned it, and I really like that term. We're at a crossroads with the party. We've got a terrific opportunity here to reach out to veterans and rural residents, learn about their issues, support them, and then reap the benefit of their support. We're strong folks, and we can contribute a tremendous amount more to the party. And I want to salute each candidate. I heard specific goals, detailed plans, and most importantly, a real commitment to work hard and to communicate and work with us. So thank you so much. I've been a candidate. It's tough. The pay isn't very good. Actually, the positions you're running for, the pay isn't very good, but it really makes a heck of a lot of difference. So thank you so much. It's been a wonderful evening. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Everybody.
All right, thank you.